This week in Arsenal, the Gunners win at Forest ahead of a crucial clash against Liverpool. Thomas Partey is injured once again. The January window closes with no acquisitions made, and Alexander Zinchenko and Ben White are sharing wives? Let's get into it. Welcome in to This Week in Arsenal, episode 44. It is Friday, February 2nd, 2024. As always, I am Sham, and you can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. And I am joined as ever by the one, the only Sash at LT Arsenal. Sash, what do you think of Ben White and Zinchenko's situation there? What are your thoughts?
That's desgracia, mate. Absolute desgracia. I could not believe Mikel actually said that. Like, hilarious. What a hilarious guy. It's all over the headlines. People in the recent days were speaking about, oh, does Mikel Arteta trust youth? Oh, is Mikel Arteta good enough to take Arsenal to the top? But today he has made everyone forget about everything else that's going on. And this is the point of discussion. So I think his plan worked. It was to divert the fans' attention. And Twitter is flooded with this. Some people have taken it very seriously and they're like, oh, this is disgraceful. How could he say such a thing? Then there's others like me and you who just cannot stop laughing after hearing something like that in a press conference. Um, but yeah, this is Mikel Arteta. Like, without knowing it, he's become the ultimate meme material. And long may it continue because it's giving us good entertainment.
Yeah, I am not one to kink shame, but I like to imagine him saying that and then it cutting to Zinchenko and White just storming into his office and be like, "You said what about us?" That is one way to encourage team bonding, I guess. Um, I was telling you before we started. It kind of reminds me of this movie called The Campaign that came out like maybe like 10 years ago at this point, and it was starring Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. And there's a scene where Will Ferrell's character gets really, really mad at Zach Galifianakis' character, and he's just sitting there, just fuming, and he's like, I'm gonna fuck his wife. And then like his manager is just like, yeah, great. No, what are you gonna And I think that's how the conversation between Arteta and White went after the Forest game, where White's just saying there, just saying to himself, I'm gonna fuck his wife. And Arteta's like, yeah, wait, what?
Wait,
So
what did you say?
yeah, I'm not, and I'm gonna put it on television. Okay, maybe the first part you can do. The second part, definitely not. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's also possible that as whatever fight that Zinchenko and White had is completely gone, and they're both united now against Arteta. So I think mission accomplished.
oh man, it's gonna be funny when it comes out that like someone just like had a pipe burst in their house and they're crashing, and that was really the end of it. And Arteta just went and said some wild stuff.
It's hilarious, absolutely
Oh man.
hilarious.
Well, that
Yeah,
was that was that was a great way to start the morning. But yeah, we're talking in obviously it's been a few days since the result, but we're talking a few days after the 2-1 win at Nottingham Forest, and we're going to play Liverpool in probably a make or break fixture in a couple days as well. And I think probably the place to start here is with the Forest match before we move on to other stuff. And again, since it's been a couple days, so there's really not much of a need to get into the nitty gritty. But I think the big takeaway from the Forest game was Smith Rowe, right? Because he came back, and you and I talked about this in the previous episode where we kind of gave our thoughts on whether or not Smith Rowe would start even a few games before the end of the season. I was pretty pessimistic about it, and then lo and behold, in the starting lineup for Nottingham Forest. So I guess my first question to you is, I mean, what did you make of his performance? And before you answer, let me just read out some of these Thought Mob stats to you. Right, he 42 out of 45 accurate passes for 93%. One chance created, 0.08 expected goals, 0.02 or sorry, 0.21 expected assists. You know, 0 of 1 shots on target, 48 touches, 2 touches in the opposition box, 3 passes into the final third. So, you know, what did were you impressed overall with how he did, or did he look a little rusty to you?
I think he had a good performance, a solid performance. I don't think he was rusty, but I still think he needs more rhythm, more momentum in terms of like his game streak because he came off the bench against Palace, had a nice little cameo, and then he starts. I think his first league start since the game against Nottingham, not, since the game against Burnley, was it? Or Sheffield? Yeah, it was the game against Sheffield United. It was his first start since then. So it's been a few months since he started. And even before the Sheffield United game, I think his previous start came last season against like Bournemouth at home. In that game, Reece Nelson scored the winner. In fact, that game he didn't start. He comes on for Trossard, I think, after 15 minutes. So this guy's had like three appearances where he's played over 60 minutes, like almost in the last 1 year. So he's not had much game time at all. So considering that, I thought he looked really good. He looked sharp. I know there have been a lot of reports that he's been sharp in training, etc. But until we see it on the pitch, it's really hard to say Smith Rowe is back. But I think a lot of promising signs were shown against Forest. I think he gives Arsenal a different dimension. We saw the triangles that were being worked between Zinchenko, Martinelli, and Smith Rowe. I think Smith Rowe is better at receiving the ball in the half space, turning away, driving forward. In general, his associative play is really good. And I think he's a player that can help the others around him also improve. Because if you see the way he moves, the runs he makes, it always frees up space for the others. I thought Martinelli was pretty good, better than how he has been recently. And I think that was in part due to Smith Rowe. Zinchenko was pretty good until the error at the end. But with Zinchenko, this is always going to happen. But I do think a huge reason why our left hand side looked better during the game was Emile Smith Rowe. And I don't think he's gotten out of the first gear yet. I think there's still a higher level for him to find. And for that, he has to get a run of games now going forward. But Sham, I want to ask you as well, what did you make of it? And we're speaking about the importance of Smith Rowe playing, getting that momentum. Would you play him against Liverpool this weekend?
I want to preface my answer by saying I thought he looked great against Forest, and I think that was the most fluid our attack has looked all season. Martinelli was once again swapping positions with Jesus, and I think that's at least partially down to the fact that because Jesus likes to end up inside the box, he's not like a guy who likes to stand in the box. He likes to start from outside and go in. I think having Smith Rowe who can go outside and play that left wing role allows that to happen more often, right? So I'm really encouraged by what he did, and I do want to see much more of him moving forward in the future. That being said, I think I would start Havertz against Liverpool, and the reason for it is
Oh my
this,
God.
right? For for all the very valid complaints that you and I and many others have had about Havertz's play this season, I think he brings those out of possession qualities. I don't think you can really deny, right? He's a pretty solid dual winner. Billy Carpenter put out a diagram of Havertz basically tracking and sitting in front of Trent Alexander-Arnold when Liverpool are trying to build up, right? Which is a very key way to stifle them. And his off the ball movement's really good as well, and he's willing to get stuck in and make tackles and shove people around a little bit. So I think that's really important when you are trying to play in a way that suffocates the other team and takes the air out of the game. And I think that's how you have to play against Liverpool, right? Because Liverpool are very all action. They like to turn into a basketball game, and that's when things tend to fall apart for us. We're much better when we slow everything down, when we control proceedings, when again we take the air out of the game. And I just think Kai Havertz is better at helping us do that than Smith Rowe is, right? So when we're up against low blocks, I think Smith Rowe is a much superior option to Havertz because of the way that he, takes the ball on the turn and drives, and his fluidity and is able to swap positions with people, and his willingness to take shots, and just the zip and the pace that he plays with. I mean, I remember Havertz came on in the closing moments against Forest, and he'd pick up the ball in a pretty decent amount of space and then just turn, lay it off to Trossard, or just pass it up to Nketiah, and the ball was going 0.75 miles an hour. Right? It was really different from what Smith Rowe was doing, and I think less effective. So I would play Havertz against Liverpool because I think he will help us kind of quiet them down a little bit. But outside of like big games against Liverpool and City, I think we have to keep Smith Rowe fit, because that's the more effective option.
Yeah, I get your point about Kai Havertz being better maybe off the ball than Smith Rowe. But if you're going to go in that direction, I would personally just play Jorginho at 6 and Rice as the 8 if I really want like a hard tackling player there, as opposed to playing Havertz in midfield. I actually would not even mind starting Havertz down the middle, even though Gabriel Jesus scored against Forest. I still would play Kai Havertz in a game like this big match. I trust Kai Havertz to deliver the goods for us. I think he has a physical presence about him. And we saw against Forest as well that we got into a lot of good crossing situations. And every time I was thinking, what if we had some presence in the box? Some will say put Havertz in midfield, make him make runs from midfield and go forward. But I think that some of the reason for our good play was because Havertz was not there in midfield, and it was Smith Rowe stitching things together there. And if you have a presence like Havertz up front, I think it might be useful. So while I get your point, I think for me personally, the direction I would take is to do Jorginho, Rice, Odegaard, the way we set up against Man City earlier on in the year. I think Arteta would probably do that. I see Arteta being a bit more pragmatic and a bit more conservative in this game because of what's at stake here. We're 5 points behind Liverpool. There's two ways of looking at it. And one way is you're like, let's just go gung ho, take a punt and see what happens. The other is let's be a bit calm here. Let's stay in the game for as long as we can and look to not nick it, but rather look to get it, maybe a winner off the bench or maybe a winner through a set piece goal. It's about, I think, being solid and not giving Liverpool a lot. And I think we will create chances. I see Arsenal creating chances regardless of who plays in midfield. We created chances against them in the FA Cup. We created chances against them at Anfield. It's just that we didn't take those chances. So I think, yes, this is a game about being clinical and having a solid structure. And I agree with you completely that in a game like this, we need more solidity in midfield. I just think the way I would go about it is in a slightly different direction to you. And I would play Rice in midfield over Kai Havertz. But yeah, it will be interesting, I think, to see what Mikel does.
I would agree with you with the Jorginho Rice pivot. The only problem is, if we had Tomiyasu, right, I would be 100% in favor of that, right? But I think if you're going to play Zinchenko and Jorginho together against Liverpool, I'm just not 100% secure with that. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, there's just, I think those are probably the two best options: either Havertz left center mid or Rice left center mid. It just kind of depends on the trade off that you're willing to have there. But yeah, I think those are two good options. I think the main point is, if you play Smith Rowe there, it turns into very much like a back and forth style of game. And I just think we'll lose more often than not if we let Liverpool do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we should not, I agree. We probably should not turn it into a transition heavy game because that plays into Liverpool's strengths. And that's why I would like for us to make it as boring a game as possible, not give too much to Liverpool, have a solid foundation. Because Liverpool, I don't think they're incredible at breaking down like a deep block. I'm not suggesting we sit deep, but I think if we have a good structure off the ball and have solid players, we can make it difficult for Liverpool. And we can hit them on the transition with Martinelli, like we did last season. The goals that Martinelli scored to open it, even the one that Saka scored, which was a counter-attacking goal. Liverpool are also really susceptible to those transitions. So it's going to be a fascinating game and one that I'm really looking forward to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be a really important test, and I think outside of a couple guys, we basically have the full complement of players that we would want to face Liverpool with. So yeah, I mean, it's all about. I think it's just all about how Arteta is able to kind of get these guys prepared for the game and the mentality that we play with. And I think Liverpool are a team that you absolutely cannot panic against. And if you panic, they will take advantage. So I think as long as we keep things like nice and cool and calm, I'm optimistic. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but so before we do a full blown preview of the Liverpool game, I do want to kind of briefly address the transfer window, right? Because I don't think it's really come up much over the last month, which we're not used to, right? We're used to January windows being filled with rumors and near misses and gossip and all that stuff, and it was really quiet. There are a couple of links at the beginning of last month, and then that was about it. Um, I think all of our expectations are pretty quickly lowered because of FFP, and Arteta came out, I think, 3 or 4 days ago and effectively said, "Yeah, we're not doing anything this month." Um, so yeah, I want to get your take. Are you disappointed with how the January window has gone? Or I guess that's a pretty easy question because we're all disappointed. Let me rephrase it. Do you think there was anything that we could have done this January to improve our squad situation?
Look, we could have done many things, right? We could have, like, we could have always gone and brought in some player who might not be good enough, who might be a stopgap. We could have found someone like that, but I don't think that was the direction we should have taken. So, from that point of view, I think the club made the right choice not to go, not to panic. Like even take a guy like Trossard, who I think we can all agree is a good player to have in the squad. I think Arsenal are at a stage right now in the project that we don't even want to sign a player who's even on Trossard's level. Like it has to be someone who is top. And the reality of it is that you don't get such players in January. Or even if there's someone who's available, like a Musa or someone like this, you maybe you have another alternative in the summer that you're after, so you don't want to panic. I think in past January windows, Arsenal did sense a couple of opportunities. You saw it once with Dusan Vlahovic in a couple of years ago in the 2022 January window, where the team was really interested to bring him in. But we didn't end up doing it because we got outbid by Juventus. But we tried. And same can go be said about last January as well, where we wanted Mudrik. We also wanted Caicedo, but both of them were out of our price range. Same can be said with João Felix as well. So I think Arsenal, if the right opportunity was there, are always a club that would look to explore it. But in a January like this, where there's really no one out there, I can understand if all the other clubs were signing players left, right, center, and it was only Arsenal that didn't move. If you actually look at it, none of the big clubs really made any huge groundbreaking move which made people go like, "Wow, what a signing! How did we not get him?" I didn't see anyone like that available, and we just have to maximize what we have, Sham. Like it's about maximizing what we have because we have a good team, we have a good squad. We were top of the table just after Christmas. We're not a bad side. That's the higher level for this team to find, and it's up to the manager to use the resources he has to find it. I was a bit annoyed when Arteta came out and said, "Oh, we're so short in so many positions." I was a little bit annoyed because this is your fourth season here, and you've spent a lot of money. You've spent 500, 600 million. I know that may not be a lot in today's world, but still, I was a bit annoyed by that because you have a good team, you have enough resources at your disposal. You have to adapt, you have to work with what you have and look to maximize it. That's what good managers do. That's what Jurgen Klopp has done. And this is for me one slight criticism I have of Arteta is that sometimes he doesn't maximize the resources that we have already got. So that's what I want to see from us until the end of the season. No, I'm not melting down over this. We spent a lot in the summer. Let's put this January window behind us and let's look to go all out in the summer and look to really elevate this squad to another level. How do you see it, though, Sham? Like, do you see it in a similar sort of way, or was that maybe some opportunity we missed, like maybe Timo Werner?
No, Timo Werner is the last player we need to put in the squad. Um, I think it was perhaps a smart acquisition for Spurs, but yeah, not for us. What I'll say is this: 8 Premier League clubs didn't make any signings in January, right? Us, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Everton, Fulham, Liverpool, United, and Newcastle. And I also will add on top of that, City made I think they made 1 or 2 signings. I know they signed Echeverry, right? Or something like this. I could be wrong. I know they made a couple signings,
Like, was
but
he the South American player, or is that
I
someone
think
else?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me Claudio Echeverri. Yeah, yeah. So they signed him and then loaned him back, um, which isn't really a needle mover this season for City, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's another point I want to make. So eight teams, including us, didn't make any signings in the Premier League, and then I think there are a couple teams who made signings, but not big ones, right? Now, obviously, Spurs, went and made I think 3 at least, and then I think they sealed one for the summer as well. Um, so they were fortunate in that they had some money to spend in the summer, but FFP really killed most of the teams in the Premier League. The biggest spenders last month were actually Ligue 1, not the Premier League, Ligue 1, who's normally
PSG.
yeah, and they're. I think most of that's down to Leon just throwing their money everywhere to not get relegated, but they're normally down that list, right? It's normally the Premier League who are the top spenders. So, I think, like you said, we didn't really need anyone per se. Obviously, a center forward or an overlapping left back or something, right? Would have been welcome. But I don't think it kills us that we didn't sign anybody. And I think it is a benefit for us because it puts everything down to coaching and to team staying fit, right? And if you put it down to those two things, actually let me rephrase. If you put it down to coaching, I like our odds just about as much as anyone else's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you include the fitness, I think we have to be smart now, right? But we're only in 2 competitions between now and the end of the season. Liverpool are still in 4, right? And they play a very rock and roll style of football that is very taxing on the body over a period of time. So, they're playing very well right now, right? Everything's clicking for them. I think they're going to hit a couple speed bumps on the way. So, I yeah, I think incoming wise, obviously you're always disappointed when the team doesn't sign anyone new. No shiny toys for us this January. But yeah, I'm okay with it. And I will say, in terms of outgoings, right, to just kind of transition um into this next thing that I think has been raging online. In terms of outgoings, I think we did some really smart stuff, right? We loaned out Zane Monluis to Reading, and we loaned out Keon Edwards to Leighton Orient, and we loaned out Charles Sego Jr. to Swansea to join up with Charlie Patino. I think we pulled the plug as we should have on Miguel Aziz, and we also sold Lino Souza. A lot of people are disappointed about the Souza sale.
Yeah.
I am as well, but I get it, right? Because currently he's got Zinchenko and Tomiyasu and Timber and maybe even Kivior ahead of him in the pecking order, and we're getting linked
Mhm.
to Hato. I think it's Hato. I'll say Hato over at
Hit.
Ajax. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you're Lino Souza, right? And you want to break into a first team soon. You look at that and you think to yourself, I don't really have a shot here, do I? So I think at least at Villa, it's Digne and Moreno that he has to get past. I think that's a lot more doable for him. Um, so I understand just kind of taking the money there, but I there's been this conversation, right, about whether or not Mikel Arteta trusts the youth, and I think a lot of it is very unfounded. But I do think there is a legitimate conversation to be had about how we prepare our youth players, right? And I'll get your take on this first, right? Like, where do you stand on the whole Arteta doesn't trust the youth thing? Especially as you look around and you see, Kabi Mainu win United a game against Wolves, and you see Connor Bradley just run the show against Chelsea at Anfield. What are your thoughts on whether or not Arteta has properly utilized the Haaland players?
Okay, let's do this. Okay, you mentioned this guy Tom, that Bradley guy from Liverpool, the right back. Fair play to him. He ripped Chelsea apart, which everyone does these days. But I just want to say one thing: people have short memories. Sham, can you tell me what happened Boxing Day of 2020?
Emile Smith Rowe was it his first start
It,
as a
it
senior
was
player?
it was his second start as an Arsenal player. So he had started one match before in the league, that is, against Everton, which was the game Freddie Ljungberg managed, his last game in charge, where he played all the kids. That was his first league start. His second league start came under Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
We had Emile Smith Rowe, who was 9, who had just turned 20. We had Gabriel Martinelli, who was 18. We had Bukayo Saka, who was 18. These were the three attacking players for Arsenal that day.
Mhm.
Chelsea had come off a summer spend of like 250 million. They were supposed favorites or pipped to win the league at the start of the season. They were first in the table just a couple of weeks before we played them. And what happened? Our youngsters demolished them, right? That's what happened. We absolutely ripped them apart. But
Yep.
back then, there was nothing like, oh, Mikel Arteta, look at him. He's playing the youth and he's beating this Chelsea side that has spent like huge amount of money to sign all those superstars. There was no talk of that then. People have short memories, right?
Yep.
And what about Kobe Mino? Kobe Mino, I think he scored his first goal for United. Fair play to him. He's a
It was
huge
a great
talent,
goal.
great player, fantastic talent. The way he took it, brilliant. Big future ahead. Fair play. But isn't that what we also did for Saka? Don't you think
Yeah.
so? When Saka was 18, when Saka first made his debut for Arsenal, he played as a left winger for the first 2 or 3 games. And then after that, he was moved to left back. Let's not forget that. It was Mikel Arteta who played Saka on the right, because before this, even for the academy, Saka was always playing on the left. It was Arteta that put Saka on the right hand side over the club record signing Pepe, and Arteta got blasted by it. All these Pepe fanboys who care more about like him than Arsenal, they were destroying Arteta. They were like, "How dare you bench Pepe? Your treatment of Pepe is disgraceful." What happened in Mikel Arteta's very first game in charge of Arsenal? He benched Pepe. He played Reece Nelson in his very first game. And what does
Yeah.
that tell you about him? If you're a good player, even whether you're young or old, you will be picked. People
Yep.
say that his decision to give 15-year-old Ethan Nwaneri is like some PR move. I don't think it is. I think Mikel Arteta has seen his talent and sees him as a huge player for the future. And he wanted to bring him on as a sub to give him that confidence that, hey, look, Ethan, you're a young player. And look, obviously, no one is going to play regularly at 15, 16, 17, even in the Premier League. But I'm bringing you on today to show you that I trust you to be a top player. Even at 15, I know you have the talent, but you need to have a bit of experience. People have short memories, Sham, because
Yep.
Arsene Wenger, much as we praise him for being this guy who develops young players, do people have any memory of what happened to Jack Wilshere, Aaron Ramsey, Abu Dhabi when they were young? It's the Premier League. When you play an 18-year-old in the league, you always risk a bad injury. You want to manage the player well. And this is why even Martinelli was integrated in a somewhat slow way. And people miss
Even
the point.
even Theo
That's what I'm
Walcott,
annoyed about.
even Theo
Theo
Walcott
Walcott
to
as
an
well.
extent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Even
I
Theo
don't think it never got as bad as Wilshere and Ramsey, but he missed plenty of time himself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and on this PR move point, when has Mikel Arteta ever been a guy to do PR move stuff?
Yeah.
The dude's a robot. The guy is a
Yeah.
big fucking nerd, right? Why would
Yeah.
he do PR stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just it doesn't make any
This
sense. And
this was the
I
same guy who 2 weeks a few weeks ago in the in a pointless Champions League match refused to bring on any player because he said, no, I'm going to play XYZ player, right? He's a
we're
rigid
up
guy.
5-0 against Lens, and he didn't want to do it, right? And another point I want to make, right? You know when Smith Rowe made his official first team debut?
When under Unai Emery, right, in the
Yeah,
2018 season in the
it was
Europa
the
League.
same. It was the same day as Saka. They both made their debut together, right? They both
Oh, it
came
was
on as
against
substitutes. Yeah,
was it against that team Vorksla or something like this?
yeah.
If I'm not wrong.
I can't pronounce the name, but I think that's the first word of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Vorksla or something like that. They both came on and made their debuts in the same game, right? But Smith Rowe didn't make his first starts until Lundberg, right? Until the game before Arteta, formally took charge of Arsenal, right? So I just
Yeah.
want to make that point because everyone keeps on pointing at Emery as this beacon of kindness for youth players. No, that's not why he did it. He played Saka broke into the first team because we were out of options. He was desperate, right? We had a left back injury crisis when
Yeah.
Saka started there. And so, I want to say that to make my general point here, which is people are complaining that we're not giving the youth a chance, right? Two things. One, the youth players normally get an opportunity when the first team is desperate for one reason or another, right? And I think both of those instances are kind of encapsulated by Liverpool and United right now. Look at United. United are struggling. Ten Hag is just grabbing at shit and trying to find an answer. So
Yeah.
when Casemiro got injured, when McTominay wasn't available, when the team was awful, and Ten Hag, like any manager, is looking for a spark. Like he's looking for some player who can come in and just listen to him and not lose the game, right? And that's when Kobbie Mainoo came in, right? And then with Liverpool, um, Trent got injured. Joe Gomez was injured. They didn't have any options at right back. They had Connor Bradley, who went and made 43 appearances for Bolton last season on loan. Right, this is a guy with experience. I think he's 20. Right, so they went and put him in, and it's worked out. And now people are pointing at I mean, I've seen some people ask why we aren't playing Ethan Winery or Miles Lewis Skelly because they're teenagers, bro. They're not even
He's
old enough to drink.
17. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God.
If
Yeah.
you want to, those are the two best, those are apparently the two best talents that we have ever had come out of the academy, which is, considering the players that we've produced, really high praise, right? Why would you jeopardize that by tossing them to an actual game of consequence, that they are not at the level for, and letting them struggle, right?
Mhm.
And then people are asking,
Absolutely.
why aren't we playing Ruel Walters? Because Arteta thinks Cedric is better than him if the PSV game is anything to go by, right? And on top of all that, what's 15-20 minutes against PSV or against Lens going to do for these guys? I want to loan players out. I want to I what we're doing for Patino and Sego Jr. and Brooke Norton Cuffey. I want to do that for all of our promising U23 talent and get them out there, on different on other teams, getting senior experience so that they can come back and either have built up enough of a name for themselves that we can profit, or have enough experience and wherewithal to be a contributing part of this team. But I'm not. There's no point to just crying about not giving 16, 17-year-olds 20 minutes of game time in the Champions League, which,
Yeah.
by the way, the Champions League is something that players have explicitly joined us in order to participate in. So if you're Jorginho, if you're Gabriel Jesus, if you're Ben White, right, and you're sitting on the bench and you're watching some teenagers come on the pitch against PSV ahead of you, I would go talk to the manager afterwards and be like, "Hey man, like this is what I'm here to do." Right?
Mhm.
I see these guys in practice. Why are you just giving them the minutes instead of me? Um, and if you want us to, if you feel our season is going so poorly that we should start looking at academy players to feature, show me an academy player who makes our starting 11 right now. The answer is there's none,
No one.
right? And that of course leads to a conversation about why aren't we producing talents who are, and are we doing enough to make that happen? And those are all super valid conversations that we can have another day, preferably with a Hale End expert on the pod. But just the number of people who keep on saying this is what happens when you trust the youth. Arteta hates the academy players, blah blah blah. It's not true. And I don't know why we keep on whining about this when it is the least of our problems. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's my rant.
No, absolutely. I think you raised some good points here. I think the first thing is, do we hype our academy players a bit too much? Because every player, like Miguel Aziz, people are like, oh, he's the next big thing, And look, he's a talented player. He's done well for himself to play at that level. And I think we have to respect everyone who comes from their academy, no matter where they go. Even if they go to the third division or second division in Spain, I think that's still really creditable and better than what most people that play football will ever achieve in their life. So it's not something to be made fun of or like, haha, he's not made it. But look, in terms of playing for Arsenal, playing at the highest level, he definitely didn't make it. And I think that's why we have to be a little bit calmer before going gung ho on how we hype up youth players. Maybe even I'm guilty of it, because when I watch a youth match and I see some player with their Arsenal jersey on balling in the youth team, I'm like, hey, this guy looks really good. But it's really hard to say sometimes which player is going to for sure make it to the first team. You always have different cases. Like Reece Nelson at youth level was the best player. He was like the Messi, Ronaldo of youth football for those years he was playing in the youth side. Saka was really good in the youth team as well, but he didn't get the sort of hype that Reece Nelson got. So you never know how youth team football will translate into first team football. So we always have to be careful before we jump into conclusions. And as you mentioned, the guy from Liverpool, he played 40 to 50 appearances for Bolton. You even look at some of the loans that some of those Chelsea players had from the youth side who went on to win the Champions League, like a Reece James or a Mason Mount. These guys have played 50, 60 games in the championship before coming and playing for their team. So it's about creating the pathway. And yes, those I guess are the two most important things. But I still think even more than this loan system or pathway, sometimes it's just the quality of player. And I asked this question yesterday: how many youth players have Arsenal lost in the last 5 years that have really made us go, oh God, we should not have lost this player? Like, how can the club lose a player like this? He's so good. There is not one player in the last 5 years we've lost which has made me like really question like how could the club lose this player? Like people say Serge Gnabry. First of all, that was a long time ago. Second
Mhm.
of all, in Serge Gnabry's case, he had already played for Arsenal. He had played a season with Arsenal. He had a preseason. You can say maybe in that particular case, the manager at the time, Wenger, could have done more to keep him, could have done more to recognize his talent, his obvious talent. And in that case, you could say, why the hell did we send him to Tony Pulis's West Brom side? I agree
Yeah.
with you on that. But in the
Yeah.
last 5 years, there is not one player I can pick and be like, this guy, how could we lose him? Even Flo Balogun, like it's not as if he's lighting the world on fire this season. Like he has a pretty average record. It's not something
Yep.
where like Arsenal, like, oh, we should have kept him. There's not one player, even Joe Willock. I remember people saying, oh, why are we selling Willock 25 million? Oh, this, that. He's a good player, but he's not a player who like we should be losing sleep over. Like he doesn't even start every week for Newcastle. So like sometimes people need to also calm down a bit. I think Mikel Arteta with the sales he's made, most times he's got it right. People were saying when Guendouzi was sold, oh, how could Mikel sell him? Look at the trust that Emery showed him. This guy was worth 70 million on transfer market. Where is Matteo Guendouzi now? Like seriously, sometimes as fans, we need to like trust the guy in charge a bit more because he has a really good track record. As a fan base, we've taken so many L's on players in recent seasons. So let's just calm down. I'm sure one of Ethan Nwaneri or Lewis Kelly would play first team because I've actually seen these guys playing against Juventus last year. I think it was in December or the year before when they came on and they looked like they belonged at the level. For some players, you can say that yeah, he looks like he belongs at this level. And I'm sure that when the pathway will be created, it's already been created. And I think next season we'll start to see a bit more of them. But we cannot give chance to every youth player. Maybe if this was year one of our project, you could say, okay, we don't have options. Let's try to bring someone in. Let's see what they do. Like even Sagoi Jr., who got a chance in the Carabao Cup, people don't want to speak about that. I don't know why. I think that was very cool that Arteta actually
Yeah.
gave him a chance, just threw him in. Like everyone was surprised. Mikel has done that, you know. If you show good work ethic, he will do that for you. And now he's got a good loan to Swansea. So as fans, we sometimes just have to be calm and trust the people who are working because I trust Arteta's talent a lot, honestly.
You know who I think about whenever this conversation comes up? Saliba, right? Remember when Arteta came in and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm looking forward to Saliba playing under Arteta," and we loaned him out, right? And everyone's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, next year though, next year," and then the next year we loaned him out, and people started getting upset, right? And you heard rumors that Arteta didn't like Saliba, and he and Saliba clashed at training, blah blah blah, and then we loaned him out a third time, right?
Mhm.
Um, and people at that point are like, oh, we're gonna lose him. Saliba's gonna leave. Like, why would he stay with us? Arteta hates him for no reason. Dick Teta, get him out. Blah blah blah. Right? Remember that? Right?
Yeah, I
And
remember.
then
I
we
was
lo-
also
and then
part
we.
of that mob for your information, but yeah.
and then you had you had certain athletic writers coming out and saying, yeah, I don't see it. I don't see him staying. And then you had people coming out, at like actual coaches, people who had watched him came out and said, yeah, he's not ready. Saliba's not ready to play in the Premier League, right?
Mhm.
And then we sent him out that third time, and there was all this uproar, and people were complaining, and they were saying Arteta has favorites, and he doesn't play actual good players, yada yada. And then last season, Saliba comes back. He's in the first team. He comes to the United States. He's very quickly established as part of the starting 11. And then we are on a 90-point pace. Or sorry, we are on a 100-point pace with Saliba as the starting right center back for the team in the side every week. No question about it. The season collapses when he gets injured, right? And
Yep.
now, still in the team. One of the
Yep.
first names on the team sheet. And everyone shut their mouth,
Yep.
right? Because Arteta showed us that he knew what the fuck he was doing. And apologies for my language, but it's just it's the guy has a really outstanding track record of talent identification. This guy went and spent 50 million on White when everyone thought he was crazy. And now Ben White's one of the best right backs in the Premier League. He's not even a right back. He's a center
Yep.
back by trade, right? He
Absolutely.
went
Yep.
he went and signed Gabriel, and everyone's like, "Oh, I guess he's okay." Gabriel, top 3 center back in the Premier League, easy right now.
Yep.
Maybe top 10 in the world, right?
Yep.
He went and signed Odegaard from Real Madrid, and people didn't really rate him, right? one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. I could go. He signed Ramsdale, and everyone's like, "This guy got relegated twice. Why do we want to get him?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then immediately, one of the best keepers in the league. Right? The guy knows what good players look like. Right? So when people are like, "Why isn't Arteta giving youth players a chance?" I know that he's not giving the youth players a chance, despite the fact that they're in practice with the first teamers on a regular basis. He's not giving these guys minutes because they're not ready. And if Mikel Arteta thinks a player is not ready, we have enough of a sample size at this point to believe him on
Mhm.
that. So I for one am just really sick and tired of random guys on Twitter thinking that their talent ID is better than Mikel Arteta's. And I'm not one of these guys who likes to be like, "Oh, why are you questioning the manager? He knows better than you." I'm not one of those guys, right? But at the end of the day, I think Arteta's done more than enough for us to trust his judgment. So
Mhm.
that's where I'll leave it on that front.
Yep, I know absolutely. And just a couple of things I want to add here. Firstly, on the Saliba thing, people sometimes lack a context, and maybe I was also at fault for it at the time. Saliba had lost both his parents, I think, in the space of a year, first
Yeah.
of all, right? And he was coming in as like a 19-year-old in like 2020. So he was really young at the time. And so Mikel felt it was best for him to go play in France, like just, be closer to where he came from and settle in. And then even the loan the next season, I think he upgraded. He went to a better team in Marseille. Um, and he obviously goes on and he becomes like the a player who features in the League One player of the
Yeah.
season charts. He also gets into the team of the season. So he had a really successful season there. But there's one more thing, which is the environment. I know for a fact, and I can tell you for a fact, that Mikel Arteta did not want Saliba to be in the dressing room that Arsenal had at the time. I'm talking between 2020 until he came back. Mikel did not want him to be a part of that dressing room under certain
Or
influences. I rather not specify who those
just
players are.
just just to clarify, and you don't have to confirm or deny, but I'm guessing we're talking about Aubameyang and Lacazette and Guendouzi and guys like that.
Well, let's just say it was a group of players and not just one. Um, but yes, it was. This was the reason why Mikel he did not want Saliba to like be in that environment, and he wanted him to have the right environment to play. He never doubted his qualities, and you can see that Saliba comes in. You watch the Amazon documentary as well. There was a segment on Emile Smith Rowe, and you know what Arteta said in that segment? He said, "I said to Emile, look, Emile, I don't doubt your quality as a footballer, but I want to see what they say about you on your loan as a person. Are you able to sit in that Arsenal dressing room and have some personality, show some personality? It's not just about talent, the sport, it's also about the personality you show. And this is something that players that are very young, some of them have it. You can be a natural like Jude Bellingham, who's going to Real Madrid and elevated them. You could be a freak like that. But most youngsters are not like that. Some are a bit introverted, some are shy. They all have to open up. There is this human side to football that most fans don't see what happens behind the scenes, and they just look at a player, how he plays, and assume that he comes in and plays. That's not how football works. That's not how development works. Everything has a logic to it, a sequence to it. And yeah, even take guys like Martinelli and Saka, the way they were slowly faced by Arteta. Like Saka was the mainstay because of his intelligence, and I think for a young guy, he was physically far ahead. So when Arteta saw that this guy is good, he still played him. But with Martinelli, he was a bit more conservative. It was very obvious at one point, Sham, that Martinelli was way better than what Aubameyang was offering on that left-hand side. But Mikel still didn't play him. It was, okay, let's give him time. I know I'm going to play him there, but let's give him time. This is the same manager that binned Mesut Ozil, gave his number 10 shirt to Smith Rowe, binned Aubameyang, gave his number 14 shirt to Eddie Nketiah, who, by the way, hadn't started a single game for Arsenal before Arteta took over. People don't want to say it because they don't like Eddie Nketiah, but he got his first ever league start under Mikel Arteta. gets the number 14 shirt. Saka gets the number 7 jersey. These are 4 players who Arteta has developed in his time here. 4 players who are all part of the first team squad. 2 of them start. In fact, against Forest, 3 of them started. What more do people want? Like, I'm sick of it. And yeah, we have to do a segment on this. So viewers, watch out. We're planning to do a segment to actually document the chances that youth players have got under Arteta. We want to compare and contrast it with the past, because in the past, Arsene Wenger, in his last 6 to 7 years at Arsenal, he didn't develop one youth player properly. I'm looking at Maitland-Niles and Iwobi as like the only players that played, but I would not consider them to be Arsenal quality. So there was nobody that came since the Wilshere and Ramsey days. And it was Arteta that revived us. So fair play to him for doing that. Keep going, Mikel. Ignore the people that say you don't give chance to youth. The facts are there for everyone to see. And on top of this, if people want to have the agenda, so be it.
Yep. And that's this isn't to say that we can't be better with how we
Yeah.
handle our youth players. We absolutely can improve, right? I think we've had some questionable loan decisions, and I think we've maybe kept players in the U23 team longer than they should have been for their development, right? And those are all valid conversations we can have. But to point at Arteta for not jeopardizing our success on the pitch in order to check that little box off, I don't really see a point to that conversation. But I think you and I have pretty thoroughly covered that discussion topic at this point. So I do want to move on to another thing that's going to piss us off before we wrap this up with a Liverpool preview, and that is Mr. Thomas Partey.
I knew it. You were just speaking about, like, we're comparing Arsenal and Liverpool. You mentioned in terms of fitness, we're in an okay place.
And then I thought of him.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, if for the viewers and listeners, if you aren't aware, it was reported and confirmed by Arteta at his presser today that Thomas Partey has suffered a quote-unquote setback and is not training currently, is out of the squad for the Liverpool game. I didn't hear anything in terms of a timetable or an expected date of return, right? So, yeah, Partey didn't even make it to one game before he got injured. And I personally don't plan on having this conversation too many more times in the near future, pending what we do in the summer. But I just do think we both think it's important for us to kind of put this on the record now in terms of just where we feel Partey's future is, like, where it hangs in the balance. And I'll go first here. I'm done. I'm done with Thomas Partey. I was done before this setback, honestly. The guy has played 341 minutes this season. 90 of those came in the Community Shield. So you can decide whether or not that counts.
That was a long time ago.
Long time ago. He played 4 matches, I think, in total so far this season. And people are on Twitter having conversations about whether or not he's better than Rice. Why don't you get on the field first, brother, before we start talking about which player is better? Yeah, man. I just, there are certain reasons that I think he should go that I don't think we should discuss on this pod. But on top of that, as a footballer, he's not reliable, and we've seen it year after year after year after year. Every single season that this man has been at the club, he's suffered some sort of injury that has helped wreck our season, right? 2020, 2021, got injured, or was it 21, 22? No, 2020, 2021. He got injured, and we, season collapsed. That's it. 21, 22, got injured. We didn't make top 4 because we were scrambling we were playing El Neni away at Newcastle and stuff like that. 22-23, got injured, missed a bunch of the run-in, right? And that combined with Saliba being out, and then he came back and he was playing like half fit, right? Wasn't even tracking back against City, cost us. And now this season, the guy didn't even start his season. So I'm done. you know, there we say this over and over and over. The best ability is availability. And if you're not available, you are not reliable. I don't care how good you are in the half turn. I don't care that you can do those little passes around the corner. I don't care how good your vertical ball distribution is or your progressive carrying, right? If you are not on the field, that's all fairy dust. It is fictional. It is the stuff of children's literature. Okay. And I think I can forgive our Arsenal this season because I have a suspicion that Timber was kind of our backup plan if Thomas Partey was unable to go. And that Timber's ACL I can't hold against the club, right? We'll see if this turns into an ongoing thing. But we've just relied on this guy so many times, and I think I saw James tweet that a big part of a player's injury outlook is how they recover, and I think that's absolutely true. And if you just, I don't want to speculate, but if you just look at Thomas Partey and his injury history and kind of these pictures of him like doing the splits in midair basically during a gender reveal and all this stuff, I get the impression that he's not as focused on his recovery as he should be. And yeah, man, I think we have to let him go this summer. He's going to be 31 in June. If the guy's body is doing this now, I'm not going to delude myself into believing it's going to get better, once he's over the age cliff. So that's where I am. But, Sash, how do you feel?
Yeah, I agree with you because I think no one can deny that when he plays, he raises the level of everyone around him. But, it's Groundhog Day at the moment. Every season we are here. Is Thomas Partey going to be fit? Is he not going to be fit? We cannot rely on that. It's just too much. Like, you cannot build any sort of project around a player who's missing 30% of every season at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
It's just not sustainable way of building a team. Like, would I sell him? I don't know. Like, I don't even know if we will find a buyer for him because he has huge wages. He's getting old. It has to be maybe to Saudi Arabia or something like that. So I think the only other solution is you just keep him. I think his contract expires. I'm just trying to find out. I think he still has another year on his contract. So I think it's only after next season when his contract expires. I think it only expires in like 2025, if I'm not mistaken.
Sash, I would sell him for 15 million euros in the summer, honestly.
Yeah, but which team do you think would come for him? Because he's injury prone. Like, I don't see him going to a top side. Like, even a team like Juventus, I don't know, because like they like to sign old players, but when a guy is missing every season, he's just perennially injured. I'm not sure how many teams would actually come in for a player like that. So that's my concern. So I would also sell him if I get an offer. But I think the more realistic outcome of all of this is that he stays here. And I was just, whilst he was speaking, I was just doing a bit of research on his like injuries at Arsenal so far. It all started in his first month at Arsenal, the injuries. He joined towards the end of October. November 9th, muscle injury for 24 days, misses 6 matches. And we think, okay, he's back. December 2020, he's back. And again, he is injured until Jan 11th, misses 39 days. He has this thing where he comes back, he's fit for 3 days, and he's out again for like a month.
Yeah.
Then he's back on Jan 11th, and we think to ourselves, Thomas Partey, Jan 11th, 2021, he's back. He's going to power us this season. Feb 4th, he's injured again for 18 days. And then for the rest of the season, he plays, he's available. fair enough. Then we go um, before the start of the 2021-22 season. He's injured from July until the end of August. So for those first 3 games that Mikel Arteta lost that season in 2021, and everyone was saying, get him out, Thomas Partey was injured even for those games. And this was his record signing the previous season, right? So that's horrible. In 2021, he actually was fit for the most part. I think this was because we didn't have to play in any competition. We were only playing the Premier League once a week. We did pretty well. We were fourth at the start of April. Everything is going fine. Arsenal looked to pull off a miracle after we were like 20th after 3 games. We're fourth in April, on course for first time getting top 4 in several years. Thomas Partey injured, misses the rest of the season. Arsenal don't have a sufficient backup or replacement, and the season is gone. That's what happened. That was the first time he cost us. The next season, to start off with, his thigh issues started. He's out for 3 weeks to start off the 2022 season. He then gets a knock. He's out for 8 days. And after that, he manages to stay fit, but again, not fully fit. As you mentioned, he gets injured towards the back end of the season. He comes, puts in some half-hearted tackle attempts. He's not playing at his best level. I think you can also, to be fair to him, credit last season's success to Thomas Partey having his most fit season in a long time. I think he was available for 28 games, which by his standards is pretty good. But again, in the crunch run-in, when it really mattered, he let us down. And this season, he's had a groin injury from September 2nd to October 3rd, out for 31 days, comes, helps us win the game against Man City, and that's the last we hear of him. And till date, he's still injured. He's back, and he's again injured. We can write a storybook on Thomas Partey's injuries at Arsenal. And for me, that is not that is far from ideal. And on the flip side, the 6 is the most important position probably in Arteta's system or even Pep's system for coaches like this. You take a look at Rodri, okay? I want to speak about Rodri. Manchester City win the treble last year. And a huge reason they managed to do that was because Rodri, just look at his availability here. In the Premier League, he starts 36 out of 38 games. Or rather, he features in 36 out of 38 games and starts in 34 of them, right? You look at the Champions League that they won as well. Rodri has played all 12 games that Man City has played in, starting 11 of those games. And the other competition they won was the FA Cup, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it was the FA Cup.
Yeah.
Or was it the League Cup? It was the League Cup or the FA Cup? It was.
No, I think it was the league last season, right? I think it was the League Cup.
Yeah, it was the. Who won the FA Cup?
I want to say Liverpool. Hold on. That's funny. We all got so focused on the Premier League and the Champions League.
It's called the EFL Cup. No wonder I was not able to find it. Yeah, he plays. I think City were knocked out early on in the EFL Cup. So
City won the FA Cup. Yeah.
Yeah, and even in the FA Cup, he featured in all the crucial matches. So that's what you want from a 6, and that's what Declan Rice is also giving us, by the way. That reliability, that presence, that plays every week. But I think for Arsenal, the problem is because we don't have that playmaker at LCM. There's a huge need for someone like Thomas Partey for those vertical passes, If Granit Xhaka was at Arsenal, Declan Rice at 6, Xhaka left 8, we wouldn't even be speaking about Thomas Partey. It would just be okay, yeah, it is what it is. The only reason we speak about Partey is sometimes we wish from midfield there was a guy pinging those passes. There was a bit more in terms of playmaking in the build-up. That's something we are missing, and that's why the name of Thomas Partey is up. But I hope in the summer, Sham, as you mentioned, we need to move on, bring in Zubimendi, bring in someone who's going to be here in the long term. Let's cut ties. Fair play, Thomas. You played a role in helping Arsenal get back to Champions League football. You played a big role in helping us challenge for the title for the first time in 14 years, fair play. But I think now it's time for all parties to move on, and it's time for Arsenal to have a fresh start, I think.
Zuby Doo, where are you? Is my question. Yeah, I don't know. It's well, I mean I do know. It's just again, there are a few things more disappointing than an unreliable player. And
Yeah.
I think people are still trying to talk themselves into envisioning a way Partey can be useful this season. Maybe he can, but the trajectory that he's on, where the guy can't even practice for a week without re-aggravating something.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's a big worry.
Yeah.
So,
And
you know,
sorry to say this, I was pissed with Mikel as well, playing this guy as a right back at the start of the season. Like, don't make him move. Try to limit his movement as much as possible.
I I will say he definitely wasn't playing like the Ben White right back role, right? I
Yeah.
don't think he was getting that high up the pitch. He
But
was more like a
defensively,
halfback.
still he had to be there against
Yeah,
like Eze
definitely.
and all of these guys.
Yeah, definitely still had to defend the right flank, which wasn't great. But I think the lack of, I guess, required overlaps was nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Like, I can't stop
And that's
laughing because
yeah.
he has a bad hamstring and you're making him slide against wingers.
But yeah, that's why I wonder if Timber is the contingency plan there, because I think that's something that we could have done with him if he
Yep.
hadn't gotten injured. So
Yep.
yeah, um, it'll be interesting to see how things develop. But I would be shocked if Partey had a role at Arsenal next season. I'm not going to sit here and say that we'll sell him for sure because he's
Hmm.
on big money with us, and like you said, it's it's not a great deal for anyone really who wants to come in and sign him right now. So maybe some team in Saudi is willing to get us off the hook here. But in any case, I think we are going to sign like Zubimendi or someone like that, and they are going to take over that role, and we're not going to need him as much as we kind of did this season. So
Yep.
we'll see. Let's let's move on to the final topic here for the pod, which is quick preview of the Liverpool match. And so they come to the Emirates on Sunday, big game. Before we even kind of talk about the X's and O's, how do you see this match, Sash? I mean, do you think it's a must win? Do you think the title challenge is over if we even draw? Where are you with that?
No, I don't think it's over if we draw because I think 5 points is just a 2 game swing and anything can happen. But if it becomes 8 points, like then I would stop believing because it's not even to do with the 8 point gap. It's also the way we are playing. I think we are not so convincing with how we're playing at the moment. So I think personally that like if the gap goes to 8 points and we continue in the same way, I don't see how we make that up. So that's why I think it's really important for us to win the match psychologically as well to give us that belief. I think there were some really good signs against Forest. It's a ground we normally lose in, but we I thought played really well, and I think the players look refreshed after the break in Dubai. So it's really important from my point of view for us to win this match, not just to bring the gap down to 2, but also psychologically take a big team out. Because this season, if you look at our record against the big 6 sides, I don't think it's been that great, to be honest. So we played Liverpool at Anfield, which we drew, fair play. We played United at home, which we won in the stoppage time, which is okay, not ideal. We've drawn against Tottenham. We've drawn against Chelsea. We beat Man City, which is good. But in general, I don't think it's been like last season where we were just blowing some of these big teams off. Like the way we did to Liverpool last season. Or Spurs, we did the double over them. Chelsea, we did the double over them. United, we've also like I think beat them at the Emirates last season, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Just,
Should have beat them at Old Trafford.
we beat them at the
One of
Emirates, yeah.
Yeah,
Some
one of
cheating
two
happened
refereeing
at Old
mistakes that
Trafford.
cost us.
Yeah, and some cheating as well with Martinelli's disallowed goal. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
a topic for another day. But
yeah,
I want us to reinforce that no, we're a really good side at home and we can take some of these teams out and we can do it. It's really important for us. I think beating this Liverpool side will go a long way because I'm just checking how many games this Liverpool team have lost, and it's just one match. They've lost one match out of 22 games in the league. That is
and
incredible, to be honest.
and that
So,
match they lost was that crazy one against Spurs, where basically
Spurs,
every call went against them.
exactly. They would be invincibles if not for that game.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think we have to be happy for about a Spurs win for a change. But having said that, I think this game is huge for us, huge, massive match. I think if we lose this match, I think we're going to slip into a top four battle. And if we win this match, I think it's going to be like the title race is on, baby. So I think there's no in between here. And that's how I see it. How do you see it? Are you going to hit the panic button if we draw or lose? Or are you just going to be calm and tranquilo no matter what happens?
yeah. I mean, if we win, it's back on. I will agree with that. If we win, it's back on. If we draw, I think it's definitely out of our hands.
Mhm.
Probably not going to happen at that point unless Liverpool and City just start dropping some unexpected points. Um, if we lose, I don't think necessarily we're in a top four race. You know, I still think we're a tier above Villa and Spurs and Newcastle. So I'm
Mhm.
not overly worried even if we do lose in terms of whether or not we'll even make Champions League. But if we lose, like I think the title race is probably over,
Done.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's just kind of happens when you drop these bad points that we've dropped,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So um, yeah, I think it's a big game, and it's one of those things where I don't think we have many excuses, right? Salah, knock on wood, might not play. Salah, if you play, you failed your country, and I'm saying that as an Egyptian. Um, Trent, I think, is a doubt. Apparently, Darwin Nunez is a doubt. So Liverpool are weakened, right? And yeah, I just think this is a moment where the team needs to step up and show us how good they
What
are.
they're made of. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to hear any excuses from this team. Really, you're. It's because the team we're looking at for Sunday is probably going to be Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Rice, Odegaard, Havertz, maybe Jorginho, Odegaard, Rice, depending, right? And then Saka, Jesus, Martinelli. And that's the best starting 11 that we can put together right now.
Yep.
And we're going to be at home. Hopefully the crowd's going to be behind us. It's all there. It's all there for you to win the game. And these are those big games that if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Mhm.
So yeah, just get out there and be the team that we think you are. Honestly. So um, in terms of kind of like previewing this thing, where like what major concerns do you have heading into the game? We'll start there.
Two major concerns. One is Zinchenko. The mistakes that he's been making, like even this match, I know people blame Saliba. I think Saliba's partly culpable. Zinchenko, you don't know when he's going to do something utterly stupid. And Liverpool are one of the worst teams you can make such a mistake against, like because they will make you pay. They will capitalize on those mistakes. The way they are set up is to like capitalize on those mistakes. And it's not just out of possession I'm concerned about Zinchenko, even in possession. Like if he gives the ball away in some stupid area, trying some nonsense, then we're gonna be in big trouble. So I'm worried about him. I'm really worried about that left hand side. And I'm also concerned about our ability to be decisive and take the chances that we're gonna get. Because I do see us getting chances. I don't know if we're going to take them. So this is the sort of game, a crunch match against the top side that have lost just one match all season. Can Arsenal do it? Can Arsenal step up? Can each of those players, as you mentioned, show that they're worth it? Time will tell. But yeah,
Yeah.
there are some concerns, but there's also some positive signs that we're seeing. So I think it's going to be one heck of a match. And if we win, I'll be incredibly pleased because, we're right back in it if that happens.
Yeah. And I'll kind of just piggyback on those 2 points because I think those are I mean, it's efficiency in both boxes, right, at the end of the day. And, that's kind of always been our story against Liverpool throughout Arteta's tenure. Um, in Liverpool's box, I don't need to see Jesus hitting the post. I don't want to see Saka trying to volley on his right foot and absolutely whiffing the ball. I don't want Martinelli just stuck out on the left again, not getting into the box. And hopefully, we're hopefully it's Connor Bradley playing it right back. And I think Martinelli will probably be his biggest challenge yet defensively. So, hopefully that's the case for us there. But
Martinelli, though, just to quickly, sorry to interrupt you, but
that's fine.
Martinelli, he's the type of player that will get schooled by Jet Spence, but then he's the kind of guy that will cook someone really good like Kyle Walker. So I don't know
Yeah,
with Martinelli as well sometimes what we're gonna get from him.
yeah, yeah. I unfortunately could see Connor Bradley just shutting him down. Honestly, I think that's very much within the range of outcomes. And
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, we have to be good in their box. And on top of all of that, because Liverpool's defense will give us opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, I think Konate also might not be available, right? Am I remembering that correctly? I might be wrong there. I'm not 100% sure. But Liverpool defensively aren't amazing. And so we are going to get some opportunities, but at the end of all of it is going to be Allison,
Yep.
best keeper in the world. Guy keeps Liverpool in games even when they shouldn't be in them, right? So you have to beat that guy too, even when you get these chances. And that requires you to be viciously ruthless when you get these chances. So again, I just, I need us to kick it up a level in terms of how good we are at the end of moves. I don't want to see any of these shots that just look like the point was to get it on target and not to actually put it in the back of the net. So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
one thing. And then on the other end of it, we're the best defensive team in the league, right? But like you said, I think we're jokesters on the ball every once in a while in our own third. And Zinchenko's a big part of that. And Raya also, I think, has contributed there. Um, and Liverpool, I suspect, are going to press us pretty aggressively.
Yep. I see
And
that too.
yeah, and so if we're not careful, we're going to give them these little opportunities, and that's all they need. Because Nunez aside, you still have Jota, who looks like he's on a heater right now, just in time for us, as always. But you have Jota, you've Sabozalai, you have Gakpo, um, even Trent, right? All of these guys are killer finishers. So, if you give them a sniff, they can make you pay for it. So I think that's something that we also have to be conscious of. But outside of that, I like us in midfield against them, right? Um, I think Rice's progressive carrying and Odegaard's care with the ball when he's on form, and even Havertz if he's a safe passer, or Jorginho I think is excellent pulling the strings. I think we have the midfield to control this game, right, and to take advantage there. But yeah, it's all about executing in the boxes. So if we can make that happen, then I'm optimistic. But I think the first few minutes of this game are really going to tell us the story for the whole 90 minutes.
Yep. Yep. Going to be a really interesting one. Final predictions.
I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go 3-2. 3-2 Arsenal.
Okay.
Um, and I think it's not going to be pleasant. I'll put it like that.
Okay, I'm gonna go 3-1 Arsenal. I'm gonna be
Okay.
optimistic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
It's just I think Arsenal and Liverpool is just such a crazy fixture. You
Always
know,
so entertaining. Yeah.
yeah. So it's so hard predicting that game because Liverpool could batter us, or we could score first and
Hmm.
lose, or they could score first and lose, or we can just trade blows for 90 minutes and it finishes 4-4.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything could happen, but I think it will be a more open game than we want it to be, and it just kind of depends on those critical moments.
Hmm.
Who steps up and who gets the job done. So
Yep. Yep.
I think we're up for it. I think we're in a good place. I think the little winter retreat's been helpful, and obviously we're on a 2-game win streak. I think these guys
That's a
believe.
streak.
Sorry.
That's like Arsenal's form is so bad this season. Like we're on a 2-game win streak. It's
2
like a
games,
serious
woo!
thing.
As soon as I said that, I was like, "That's not that impressive." But yeah, it's we've strung a couple wins together, which is better than I can say for December.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's all there. You just have to make it count. So we'll see what
Yep.
happens.
Yep. Yep. Looking
But
forward to it.
yeah, it'll be a fun game, and I'm gonna lose my head either way. So we'll see. But yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Put a bow on
Is
it.
it? Is it
Is it?
because you said you're gonna lose your head, and you said that's a good place to wrap it up. It's not really, but yeah, I think
Well,
it's
it's
been a
probably a
great
bad
chat.
place to leave it.
Yeah.
No, I'm quietly confident. It's just that in this fixture, I've been confident before, and then I've seen us just do a bunch of stupid shit and mess up the game. So that's the thing. So we'll see. If we play how I know we can play, then I think we can beat them. But
Yep.
if one person on the day is unserious, then we're not getting a result. I'll put it like
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
think we know who that one person is, but yeah, let's see.
I'm not gonna say any names. All I'll say is he has apparently been sharing his wife with a teammate over the last few days.
Oh, not Ben White, man. Ben White is the top player.
And we've come full circle, and that is a good place to leave it.
Yeah, yeah.
So so thank you so much for being here with us, for listening to Sash and I chat football. I think we covered a lot today. I think there's been a lot to talk about, and yeah, just thank you for being here with us. This couldn't be possible without you. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so that you get those notifications whenever we go live or post videos. Sash and I, we promise, are working on getting some videos up. Um, so we're gonna get the ball rolling on that soon. And then if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do subscribe, or apparently it's follow now. One of those two things. Leave a 5-star review if you'd like. That really help us out. And then you can follow me at Shamsdale. You can follow Sash at LT Arsenal. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal on Twitter. And yeah, we will be back with you after either a 3-2 or a 3-1 win against Liverpool to reignite our title charge. So until then, be a gooner, don't be a goon, and we will talk to you soon. Bye bye.